Chapter 5, Zeptoformic Qabalah, Section 1, Outline. In this video series, we are using the structure of the Zeptoform. In Chapter 2, for example, we use the Zeptoform in order to integrate physics, music theory, and personality type theory. Then, in this chapter, we use the Zeptoform in order to integrate Enneatypes and the Tree of Life. This figure is called the Tree of Life. In this chapter, the Tree of Life is transformed into Zeptron's tree. The Tree of Life is composed of 10 circles and 1 unseen circle. The unseen circle is drawn as a dashed line. Each circle, or sphere, represents a different quality of God, and it is protected by a different archangel. For example, the topmost sphere, which is called Keter, represents a diamond and a regal crown, and it is protected by Archangel Metatron. As discussed in the introduction of this video series, according to Qabalah, the Jewish tradition of esoteric interpretation of the Bible, Metatron is the highest-ranked archangel. The Tree of Life has the following structure. The left column represents yin, and the right column represents yang. The former is passive, and the latter is active. These columns have 3 levels: the levels of intellect, emotion, and instinct. The center column represents equilibrium. It is considered to be the quality of harmony. The top sphere represents the spiritual world, and the bottom sphere represents the material world. When the Tree of Life is applied to a human body, the right side and the left side are reversed, as illustrated. This reversed structure will be used in this chapter.
Note 1.
This figure was discussed in Chapter 4. The left brain represents yang, and the right brain represents yin. Then, the left brain perceives the right side of the world, and the right brain perceives the left side of the world. Therefore, the left side represents yin, and the right side represents yang. Also, as discussed in Chapter 4, the right side of the body represents yang, and the left side of the body represents yin. However, when you are facing someone, the right side of this person comes to the left, and the left side comes to the right. That is, when you are describing the yin-yang qualities of this person, the yin side and the yang side are reversed, as illustrated. Likewise, when the Tree of Life is applied to a human body, the right side and the left side are reversed. This reversed structure will be used in this chapter.
Note 2.
In this video series, we are using the structure of the Zeptoform in order to integrate many different fields of study, such as physics, music theory, brain science, and so on. In order to understand this integration, basic knowledge of the Zeptoform is required. Therefore, if you have not yet watched the first video, we recommend that you do so before you watch this one. Chapter 5, Section 2, the center column.
The spiritual world and the material world.
The top sphere represents the spiritual world, and the bottom sphere represents the material world. These two spheres correspond to point 1 and point 8 of the Zeptoform. In the structure of the Tree of Life, the top sphere, which is Keter, is indicated by the number 1. The same can be said for the Zeptoform. It is considered to be the symbol of oneness. According to Qabalah, Keter represents the will of God. Likewise, point 1 of the Zeptoform represents the will of God. The bottom sphere, which is Malkuth, represents the root of the tree as well as the ground, where the tree takes root. Then, Yesod, which is located above Malkuth, represents the body, including instincts, and it enables us to be active on the ground. Both Malkuth and Yesod correspond to point 8 of the Zeptoform. As discussed in the introduction in Chapter 1, point 8 was initially located at the perineum, which is the location of the first chakra, but it moved down to the calves. The calf is called the second heart because its muscles work like a pump to push deoxygenated blood back up to the heart. According to Qabalah, Yesod represents the first chakra, and Keter represents the 7th chakra. The same can be said for point 8 and point 1 of the Zeptoform.
The father and his child.
The relationship between Keter and Tifereth represents the relationship between the father and his child. Keter represents the crown, and Tifereth is the one who will succeed to the crown. The same relationship can be applied to point 1 and point 9 of the Zeptoform. The process of succession represents the following. The ideal of the father is inherited by his child, and through this process, which is the process of the incarnation, the cross as the symbol of sacrifice appears. Therefore, the symbol of Tifereth is the cross. In the Zeptoform, the cross can be seen in the heart of God, where the quality of type 9 is born. Tifereth represents the fourth chakra at the heart, and the same can be said for point 9 of the Zeptoform. Kabbalists compare Tifereth to the function of chlorophyll in green plants. Chlorophyll absorbs sunlight to make plants grow. This characteristic is equivalent to that of type 9. Related to this, the essential color of type 9 is green. Tifereth is located at the center of the tree of life, and it represents the equilibrium of the whole structure. According to Qabalah, equilibrium represents harmony and compassion. These qualities are perfectly represented by point 9 of the Zeptoform.
Note:
In the structure of the tree of life, the center column represents the equilibrium of the left and right. Then, the center of the center, which is represented by Tifereth, represents the equilibrium of the whole structure.
The violation of CP symmetry.
As already discussed, in the tree of life, Keter is considered to be equilibrium, but, in the Zeptoform, it is considered to be yang. This contradiction can be analyzed in the following way. Keter, as the will of God, represents the starting point of creation. Having said that, as discussed in Chapter 2, Section 2, the creation starts with the violation of yin-yang symmetry. The violation of yin-yang symmetry is essential to the process of the creation. This means that Keter, as the cause of creation, cannot be equilibrium, but yang. Diane Fortune explained the will of Keter, which causes the creation, in the following way.
Keter is the first activity of manifestation, movement. This constant becoming cannot remain static. It must overflow into activity.
As we can see, the function of Keter is yang.
Question:
Keter represents perfection. Therefore, it is considered to be the totality of yin and yang. Related to this, Keter is located in the center column, which represents equilibrium. However, as already discussed, Keter is not equilibrium. So, how do you explain this contradiction?
Answer:
Warm color, which has longer wavelength, indicates yang, and cool color, which has shorter wavelength, indicates yin. Then, brilliancy, or clear light, which represents the perfection of God, includes all colors, the whole range of wavelengths, and thus, it indicates the totality of yin and yang. But, this totality becomes yang, as discussed in Chapter 2. That is, although the clear light represents the totality of yin and yang, in terms of the relationship between brightness and darkness, it represents yang. It means that, in order to represent ultimate perfection, the brightness at the top needs to be integrated with the darkness at the bottom. Related to this, according to Qabalah, in order to perfect the tree of life, the top sphere and the bottom sphere need to be integrated. In the tree of life, in addition to Keter, Yesod and Malkuth are also considered to be equilibrium. On the other hand, in the Zeptoform, they are considered to be yang. This contradiction can be analyzed in the following way. Malkuth represents the fundamental ground, and the fundamental ground is required for action. Then, Yesod represents the physical body for action. Therefore, according to Qabalah, both Malkuth and Yesod are associated with action. That is, in order to be a consistent system, Malkuth and Yesod need to be considered to be yang. As we can see, if we do not consider the violation of yin-yang symmetry and right-left symmetry, the system becomes contradictory. In other words, in order to be a theory of everything, the system needs to contain the violation of CP symmetry. In this section, we discussed the center column and the violation of CP symmetry. Chapter 5, Section 3, The Three Triangles. In the Tree of Life, there are 3 triangles. These 3 triangles will be discussed, step by step.
The moral triangle.
Hesed, Getvura, and Tifereth form the moral triangle. The structure of the moral triangle will be discussed, step by step. Hesed represents mercy, and Getvura represents severity. According to Qabalah, they are governing the level of emotion in opposite ways. Hesed tends to express emotions, but Getvura tends to suppress them. In terms of enneatypes, these opposite functions are represented by Type 2 and Type 1. Type 2 tends to express her emotions, but Type 1 tends to suppress his emotions as well as instincts. Hesed represents mercy, which is related to care, and Getvura represents severity, which is related to justice. These qualities perfectly correspond to that of Type 2 and Type 1, respectively. As discussed many times, the location of point 1 is changed from the instinctive level to the thinking level. This is the violation of CP symmetry. Because of this violation, when the structure of the Tree of Life is transformed into the Zeptoform, the location of Getvura, which is represented by point 1, needs to be changed to the intellect level. Then, the right complementary partner for Hesed can be seen as Type 4. Type 2 and Type 4 are utilizing the function of emotions in opposite ways. The former is an extroverted feeling type, and the latter is an introverted feeling type. As we can see, the quality of Type 4 is the right complementary partner for Hesed. Then, in the structure of the Tree of Life, what does point 4 represents? That will be discussed, step by step.
Harmony and beauty.
Tifereth means harmony and beauty. In the Zeptoform, these 2 aspects, harmony and beauty, are designated to 2 different points, point 9 and point 4. Point 9 represents harmony, and point 4 represents beauty. The quality of point 9, which is harmony, can be recognized from the aesthetic insight of point 4 as beautiful. That is, without the aesthetic insight of point 4, the harmony of point 9 cannot be recognized as beautiful. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Therefore, the quality of harmony and that of beauty need to be assigned to different spheres.
Note:
The difference between point 9 and point 4 can be seen as the difference between Apollonian and Dionysian. The former represents harmonic and peaceful, and the latter represents tragic and passionate. Also, the former represents the state of dreaming, and the latter represents that of intoxication. Now, we can see Tifereth as the quality of Type 4 is the right complementary partner for Hesed.
Contradiction.
In the Tree of Life, Hesed is located in the Yang column, and Getvura is located in the Yin column. Because the Yang column represents masculine, and the Yin column represents feminine, Hesed is considered to be a father, and Getvura is considered to be a mother. That is, in the Tree of Life, mercy or care is represented by a father, and severity or justice is represented by a mother. These designations contradict our common sense. Related to this, Diane Fortune said,
The pillar of severity, which is the pillar of yin, is considered to be negative or feminine, and the pillar of mercy, which is the pillar of yang, to be positive or masculine. Superficially, it may be thought that these attributions lead to incompatible symbolism. It may be asked why such a male potency as Getvura should be placed in the feminine pillar.
As we can see, Kabbalists are thinking that this contradiction is superficial, but it is fundamentally contradictory. According to Qabalah, Getvura corresponds to Mars, and the symbol of Mars is the symbol of men. However, as already discussed, in the Tree of Life, Getvura belongs to the feminine column. As we can see, the structure of the Tree of Life contains inconsistency. Here is another inconsistency. As illustrated in this figure, Venus, which is the symbol is women, is located in the masculine column. In the structure of the Zeptoform, the location of Venus, is the location of point 2. As discussed in chapters 3 and 4, men tend to focus on justice, or severity, and women tend to focus on care, or mercy. It has been statistically observed and confirmed. Having said that, the contradiction in the tree of life can be solved by the structure of the Zeptoform. First, we will discuss the characteristic of Hesed. Unlike the structure of the tree of life, in the structure of the Zeptoform, the yang column does not represent masculine qualities, nor father figures. Therefore, Hesed does not need to be seen as a father. In the structure of the Zeptoform, masculine qualities as well as feminine qualities are represented by a row, not by a column. Hesed belongs to the feminine row, and thus it represents a mother. As we can see, by using the structure of the Zeptoform, the inconsistency is solved. Next, we will discuss Getvura. Getvura does not belong to the feminine row, but the minin row, and thus it represents a father. As we can see, the systemic inconsistency of the tree of life has been solved by the structure of the Zeptoform.
Note 1.
The qualities of minin, feminine, and masculine were discussed in Chapter 4, Sections 8 and 9.
Note 2.
Extroversion versus introversion is one of the big 5 personality traits. According to psychological research based on this theory, the ratio between men and women in terms of extroversion and introversion is almost 1-to-1. That is, in terms of extroversion and introversion, gender differences cannot be simply symbolized by yin and yang.
Note 3.
As discussed in Chapter 4, Section 8, the quality of extroversion has several aspects, such as assertiveness and warmness. Men tend to be high on assertiveness, and women tend to be high on warmness. Type 1 represents the former, which is assertiveness, and Type 2 represents the latter, which is warmness. As we can see, in terms of extroversion and introversion, the relationship between a mother and a father cannot be symbolized by yin and yang. In terms of extroversion and introversion, both of them belong to the yang domain.
Note 4.
In terms of traditional archetypal gender roles, the function of a mother represents yin, and that of a father represents yang. That is, a mother is considered to be functioning on the inside of the house, and a father is considered to be functioning on the outside of the house. Inside is yin, and outside is yang. Also, in terms of physical characteristics, a father represents yang, and a mother represents yin. That is, according to the yin-yang principle, big, tall, and strong are considered to be yang, and the opposite of these characteristics are considered to be yin.
The supernal triangle.
Keter, Chokmah, and Binah form a triangle. That is called the supernal triangle. As discussed in the previous section, Keter corresponds to point 1 of the Zeptoform. Then, Chokmah and Binah correspond to point 7 and point 5 of the Zeptoform. Chokmah is active intellect, and it is the wisdom for action. On the other hand, Binah is passive intellect, and it is the insight for understanding. As we can see, Chokmah and Binah perfectly correspond to point 7 and point 5. The supernal triangle will mainly discussed in the next section.
The astral triangle.
Netzach, Hod, and Yesod form a triangle. That is called the astral triangle. As already discussed, Yesod corresponds to point 8 of the Zeptoform. Then, Netzach and Hod correspond to point 7 and point 5 of the Zeptoform. That will be discussed step by step. First, we will analyze the relationship between Netzach and Hod. This relationship was described by Diane Fortune in the following way.
Netzach is instinct and emotion, a kinetic force. Hod is intellect, concrete thought, the reduction of intuitive knowledge to form.
As described by Diane Fortune, the function of Netzach is related to instinct, but that of Hod is related to intellect. That is, in order to control the instinctive desire of Netzach, the objective insight of Hod is required. That is the complementary relationship between Netzach and Hod. Netzach is represented by type 7, and type 7 tends to utilize the pleasure instinct. He is an id type, and an id type tends to utilize the functions of instinct. Related to this, in the structure of the tree of life, Netzach is located on the instinctive level. However, as mainly discussed in Chapter 1, although type 7 is an id type, he is not an instinctive type, he is a thinking type. That is, Netzach, which is represented by type 7, is inappropriately placed on the instinctive level. Having said that, because Netzach and Hod are complementary partners, Hod was also inappropriately placed on the instinctive level. As already discussed, the function of Hod is intellect, and thus it should not be located on the instinctive level.
Note:
Craving for pleasure, which is hedonism, is considered to be one of the main characteristics of Netzach. It corresponds to one of the main characteristics of type 7. As we have seen, both Chokmah and Netzach are represented by point 7. In the Zeptoform, the former is represented by yellow, and the latter is represented by orange. The function of orange is related to that of the sexual instinct as well as the pleasure instinct. Related to this, the location of Netzach can be extended to a lower level, as illustrated. Then, in the same way, the location of Hod is also extended to a lower level. The knowledge of Hod is more practical than the knowledge of Bina, and that is related to the process from point 5 to point 8. In this section, we mainly discuss the second triangle and the third triangle. When these two triangles are illustrated on the structure of the Zeptoform, the Star of David emerges. Chapter 5, Section 4, The Processes.
The process of creation.
In the teaching of Qabalah, the void is called Ein. From Ein, the first sphere, which is Keter, emerges through infinite light. Then, in the process from Keter to Chokmah, the will of Keter, which is the will of God, manifests through the action of Chokmah. Chokmah contains the blueprint for creation. Related to this, the holy idea of type 7 is called holy plan. Then, in the process from Chokmah to Bina, the plan of God is articulated by the knowledge of Bina. The knowledge of Bina is considered to be omniscience. Related to this, the holy idea of type 5 is called holy omniscience. This is the creation of the supernal triangle. As we can see, there is the perfect correlation between the process of the tree of life and that of the Zeptoform. In the structure of the tree of life, the process of creation is successively downward from the top to the bottom. This process is called involution. In this process, dot is not included, because it is an unseen circle. When it is included in this process, it emerges in the process from Bina to Hesed, as illustrated. That is, the function of dot emerges out of the conjunction of Chokmah and Bina, as illustrated. After this involution process, the evolution process happens from the bottom to the top. As illustrated in this figure, according to Qabalah, there are 3 basic patterns of evolution processes. However, pattern C is rarely mentioned by Kabbalists. When dot is included in the evolution process, this figure is changed into the next figure. That is, the function of dot emerges out of the conjunction of Chokmah and Bina. Then, the function of dot leads us to the experience of Keter, as illustrated. There is the abyss under the supernal triangle. It separates the upper spheres from the lower spheres. Then, in the ascending process, dot is considered to be the gate to the supernal triangle. When a person experiences dot in the abyss, the individuality of this person vanishes. Also, in some cases, even the experience of this person vanishes in the abyss. This is called the experience of no experience, or the experience of the cosmic void. Then, from the cosmic void, or nothingness, the experience of creation happens. That is the process of entering into the supernal triangle. As already discussed, in the structure of the tree of life, the process of creation is successively downward from the top to the bottom. This process is called involution. Almas talked about the process of involution in the following way.
One can deduce an involution theory by reading the accounts of the great chain of being.
The great chain of being is the hierarchical connection of all levels of all existence.
For these accounts can sound as if being, or God, hides himself in the process of creation, in descending worlds of manifestation, ending in the physical world, where we can perceive no spirit. We see this clearly in Kabbalistic accounts, in the idea of God constricting his light, in each successive world of creation.
According to Almas, the theory of involution is not a correct way to see the great chain of being. He said,
The accepted view of the great chain of being, among both Eastern and Western mystical thinkers is that of emanation, not involution.
According to him, the great chain of being is not created by the descending process. The great chain of being is directly emanated from the void. Related to this, in the case of the Zeptoform, the involution process can be described in the following way. After the experience of dot, rather than successively going down to the bottom, point 3, as dot, goes up to the top and superposes on Keter. In this process, point 3 is connected to point 8 through the void. Then, the evolution process happens from the bottom. Related to this, according to physics, the universe was created from the void. That is illustrated in this figure. As we have seen, in the case of the tree of life, the creation process is the process of involution. Then, the evolution process is the process of turning back. On the other hand, in the case of the Zeptoform, we can see a cyclical process. It is the structure of Ouroboros. Ouroboros is a serpent, or a dragon, which is eating its own tail, as illustrated. It represents the connection between the beginning and the ending. This structure can also be seen in a musical scale. In the case of the C major scale, for example, C, as the ending of the scale, is connected to the beginning of the scale, as illustrated. In the case of the Zeptoform scale, which was discussed in Chapter 2, the connection between the ending and the beginning is represented by the connection between type 3 and type 8. In the structure of the Zeptoform, the ascending process can be seen in the following way. As discussed in Section 1, Keter represents the crown, and Tifereth is the one who will succeed to the crown. This process of succession is represented by the process from point 9 to point 7, to point 5, to point 3, and to point 1, as illustrated. According to Qabalah, when the active intellect of Chokmah is integrated with the passive intellect of Binah, the supreme knowledge of Dot emerges. This supreme knowledge corresponds to holy law of point 3. Then, it leads us to the experience of Keter, as illustrated. As we can see, there is the perfect correlation between the process of the tree of life and that of the Zeptoform. The supreme knowledge of Dot is related to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which appears in the Old Testament. This means that, when we acquire the knowledge of Dot in a distorted way, we experience the fall from Eden. This is why the guardian angel of Dot is the fallen angel Lucifer. In the same way, an unhealthy type 3 represents a false god, wearing a golden mask. Related to this, Almas said the following.
It is said that Ennea type 3 is trying to take God's place by being a little independent god, making up his own laws. This belief that you are like a little god, functioning according to your own independent laws, is called the sin of vanity.
As discussed in Section 1, Dot is considered to be an unseen sphere. Related to this, in the Zeptoform, point 3, which represents Dot, is not included in the 7 basic points. As discussed previously, Keter, Chokmah, and Binah form the supernal triangle. Then, Dot superposes on Keter. This is the connection between holy law of point 3 and the will of God of point 1. That is, the will of God needs to use holy law in order to create the universe.
Law and perfection.
Holy perfection of point 1 is the intellectual aspect of holy will. Then, the intellectual will needs to recognize holy law of point 3 in order to operate the whole universe. Almas said,
The perception that all changes in the universe are unified as one harmonious functioning is the perception of holy law, which we need to understand in order for holy will to be intelligible.
As described by Almas, the recognition of holy law is needed for the function of holy will to be intelligible. The embodiment of holy law is called creation. That is, the intelligence of God's will brings about harmonious creation of the universe based on holy law.
Law and plan.
Holy law of point 3 is the law of the unfoldment of the universe. Then holy plan of point 7 is the harmonious pattern of this unfoldment. That is, the plan, or the pattern, of point 7 can emerge according to the law of point 3. This relationship between the law and the pattern is described by Almas in the following way.
There is a meaningful pattern to its unfoldment. This pattern is always explained by the dominant science of each era. For example, when clouds become dark in a particular way, and reach a certain temperature, rain falls. This is a pattern. The scientific laws explain this through evaporation, condensation, humidity, and so on. Holy plan is not a predetermined plan, but rather, that the universe unfolds according to inherent natural laws.
As we can see, holy plan of point 7 emerges based on holy law of point 3.
Law and omniscience.
The logic behind holy law is called logos. It is the logical principle that governs the whole universe. This logical principle can be recognized from the perspective of holy omniscience of point 5. The insight of omniscience is needed to articulate the plan of point 7. As we have seen, the supernal triangle contains the plan for evolution. In the Enneagram theory, that is called holy plan. Then, based on this plan, the material world is created through the void. That is, the evolution process happens from the bottom, based on the holy plan and holy law. The supernal triangle, which causes creation, belongs to the causal realm. Related to this, the word causal indicates the cause of creation.
Note.
In this figure, we can see the gross realm, the subtle realm, and the causal realm. These three realms were discussed in Chapter 3, Section 9.
5 stages of abyss.
As already discussed, there is the abyss under the supernal triangle. In the structure of the Zeptoform, we can see 4 different stages of abysses. These 4 stages are related to 4 different types of emptiness, which were discussed in Chapter 3, Section 9. The first abyss is experienced at point 8, and the second abyss is experienced at point 9. Then, the third abyss, which is the gate to the supernal triangle, is experienced at point 3, and the fourth abyss is experienced at point 0. In these 4 abysses, we can experience 4 different types of emptiness, which were discussed in Chapter 3, Section 9. The first stage of emptiness is the experience of physical action without the concept of time. That is related to the physical action of point 8. The second stage of emptiness is the experience of the image of emptiness. We become one with the image of emptiness. It happens in the subtle state. That is related to the empathic ability of point 9. Empathic ability includes the ability to be one with the image of the other person. The third stage of emptiness is the state of pure consciousness. In this state, even the image of emptiness disappears. It happens in the causal state. That is the gate to the supernal triangle. The fourth stage of emptiness is the real emptiness state. This is the experience of no experience. Even pure consciousness vanishes. That is the experience of the ultimate stage of the abyss. The connection between point 3 and point 8 through the void, or the abyss, is related to the structure of Ouroboros.
Mathematical laws and physical creations.
The mathematical laws exist in the causal realm. Then, the Big Bang, which is considered to be the beginning of the physical universe of the gross realm, happened, based on mathematical laws. That is why we can analyze the cause of the Big Bang by mathematical equations. The physical universe has been developed based on mathematical laws. Likewise, physics has been developed based on mathematics. If there were no mathematics, it would have been impossible to formulate any theory of physics.
Transcendence of existence and non-existence.
The gross, subtle, and causal states are the states of existence. On the other hand, the emptiness state is the state of non-existence. Then, the transcendence of the duality between existence and non-existence is called the non-dual, or the absolute. In the teaching of Qabalah, it is called Ein Sof. Chapter 5, Section 5, Planets and Deities, Part 1.
The Tree of Life, and the Solar System.
In this figure, we can see the correlation between the Tree of Life and our solar system. For example, the center of the solar system is the Sun, and, in the Tree of Life, the Sun is located at the center. The names of the planets are the names of Roman gods, or goddesses. However, there are some exceptions. For example, from the bottom, the Earth is not a name of a god or a goddess. The goddess of the Earth is Terra. Likewise, the Moon is not a name of a god or a goddess. The goddess of the Moon is Luna or Diana. These Roman gods have counterparts in Greek gods, as illustrated. For example, the goddess of the Earth in Roman mythology is Terra, and the counterpart of Terra in Greek mythology is Gaia. In the previous sections, the Tree of Life was transformed into Zeptron's tree. Then, in this section and the following two sections, Zeptron's tree is used to integrate mythological deities and enneatypes. First, we discuss the relationship between the Earth and Uranus. In mythology, the relationship between these two planets is considered to be the relationship between Mother Earth and Father Sky, or the relationship between the wife and her husband. Likewise, in the structure of the Tree of Life, the relationship between the bottom sphere and the top sphere is considered to be the relationship between the bride and the bridegroom. The top sphere of the Tree of Life, which is Keter, represents the crown of the king. Related to this, Uranus is the first king of the universe. Next, we discuss the relationship between Uranus, Saturn, and Jupiter. Jupiter, which is equivalent to Zeus, is the largest planet in our solar system. Saturn and Uranus are the second and the third. As already discussed, Uranus is the first king of the universe. Then, Saturn, which is equivalent to Cronus, is a son of Uranus. Their lineage can be represented by the process from point 1 to point 7 and to point 5. The process from point 7 to point 5 can be seen as different phases of Saturn. In this process, he became the second king of the universe, and he ruled the world wisely. That is called the Golden Age. Related to this, Saturn, or Cronus, is called the god of harvest. As mainly discussed in Chapter 1, the process from point 7 to point 5 is a deepening process. That is, in this process, Saturn is able to deepen his insight, and that can be represented by the word harvest. He is also called the god of cyclical passage of time.
Note:
When you were born, Saturn is located at a certain place. Then, Saturn returns to the birthplace by making one orbit around the Sun. It takes roughly 29.5 years. When Saturn returns to the same place, an astrological transit occurs. That is called the Saturn return. Jupiter, which is equivalent to Zeus, is a son of Saturn, and he became the third king of the universe. The process from Saturn to Jupiter can be represented by the process from point 5 to point 3. Then, point 3 superposes on point 1. Related to this, according to Kabbalists, dot, which is represented by point 3, vanishes into Keter, which is represented by point 1. Now, we have discussed the process from point 1 to point 7 to point 5 to point 3 and to point 1. The processes in this figure are all integration processes. Uranus and Jupiter, or Uranus and Zeus, are both sky gods. However, unlike Uranus and Jupiter, Saturn is not a sky god. Related to this, point 7 and point 5, which represent different phases of Saturn, do not superpose on the top sphere, which represents the throne of the sky god. As we can see, the relationship between Uranus, Saturn, and Jupiter, or the relationship between Uranus, Cronus, and Zeus, is perfectly represented by Zeptron's tree. In the structure of the tree of life, Uranus, Saturn, and Jupiter are represented by Dot, Bina, and Hesed. None of them are represented by the top sphere. As already discussed, the top sphere represents the crown of the king and the throne of the sky god. Therefore, it creates a contradiction. The location of Jupiter is especially contradictory. Jupiter, or Zeus, is considered to be the greatest king of the universe. But, on the structure of the tree of life, the location of Jupiter is not the throne of the sky god or the crown of the king. As already discussed, this structure in this figure is called the supernal triangle. According to Qabalah, the supernal triangle is considered to be the realm of creation. Next, we discuss the relationship between the Earth, the Moon, Venus, the Sun, Mars, and Jupiter. First, we discuss the Earth. The goddess of the Earth is Gaia, and she was created from the void, which is also called chaos. In addition to Gaia, Eros, which is the god of love, was also created from the void. In the Zeptoform Theory, the combination of Gaia and Eros is considered to be the representation of the Earth. The reason will be discussed step by step. In the process of creating the universe, Eros will have its complementary partner, called agape. Their relationship can be described in the following way. Eros has the function to move up to reach the sky. On the other hand, agape has the function to move down to embrace the earth. In other words, the core of agape is located in the top sphere, which is Keter, and that of Eros is located in the bottom sphere, which is Malkuth. Because Eros is the desire to reach Father Sky, it can be seen as the driving force for evolution. Related to this, Malkuth, which represents the Earth, is considered to have the greatest potential for evolution. Gaia is the ground, and Eros is the life force of the ground. In the Zeptoform Theory, the combination of the ground and its life force is considered to be the Earth. The Moon is the natural satellite of the Earth. Therefore, it can be seen as a part of the Earth system. In the structure of the tree of life, as well as Zeptron's tree, the Moon is represented by Yesod. That is the location of the first chakra and the second chakra, the chakras of the survival instinct and the sexual instinct. And the life force of Eros is considered to be the source of these instincts. As we can see, the life force of Eros is permeating both the Earth and the Moon. Luna is the Roman goddess of the Moon, and lunar cycles are related to women's menstrual cycles. In other words, Luna is using the life force of Eros. In the Zeptron's tree, the Moon is represented by point 8, and the point 8 quality of the Moon is especially represented by Artemis, who is the Greek goddess of the Moon. She represents the wilderness and wild animals. Also, she is considered to be the goddess of the hunt. The motivation of Eros, which causes evolution, can be used to experience the process from point 8 to point 2 and to point 4. Point 2 and point 4 represent different aspects of Venus. Point 2 represents love, and point 4 represents beauty. That is, Venus, which is equivalent to Aphrodite, is the goddess of love and beauty. Love and beauty need to be supported by the function of Eros. Related to this, Eros is considered to be an assistant of Venus. In the process from point 2 to point 4 and to point 1, Venus and Mars, or Aphrodite and Aries, are connected. And, from this connection, a baby is born. This baby is named Eros. That is, there are two different manifestations of Eros. One is a primordial god, and the other one is a mischievous young god. The latter is also called Cupid.
Note:
As discussed, Cupid is a son of Mars and Venus. In this context, Cupid represents type 9. Mars and Venus had another child, named Concordia. The Greek counterpart of Concordia is Harmonia. She is the goddess of harmony, and that is the core value of type 9. That is, in addition to Cupid, Harmonia can also be seen as one aspect of type 9. In this figure, the symbol of Venus and that of Mars are illustrated. The former represents women, and the latter represents men. As discussed in section 3, this structure in this figure is called the moral triangle. The morality of men is justice, or severity, and that of women is care, or mercy.
Contradiction.
As discussed in section 3, in the Tree of Life, the Yang column represents male qualities, and the Yin column represents female qualities. But, in the Tree of Life, Venus, who is a female deity, belongs to the male column, and Saturn, Mars, and Mercury, who are male deities, belong to the female column. This systemic inconsistency can be solved by the structure of the Zeptoform. As already discussed, in the structure of the Zeptoform, the Yang column and the Yin column do not represent gender qualities. Gender qualities are represented by rows, not by columns. As we can see, by using the Zeptoform, the inconsistency of the Tree of Life is solved.
Note:
The qualities of minin, feminine, and masculine were discussed in Chapter 4, Sections 8 and 9. Next, we discuss the relationship between the Sun and Jupiter. The Sun and Jupiter are equivalent to Apollo and Zeus, respectively, and Apollo is a son of Zeus. According to astrology, the conjunction of the Sun and Jupiter is an auspicious combination. In this combination, Jupiter is considered to be an advisor, having the knowledge of a mature adult, and the Sun is considered to be the potential to grow, shining through in the world. This is represented by the process from point 9 to point 3. As we can see, the relationship between the Sun and Jupiter, or the relationship between Apollo and Zeus, is perfectly represented by Zeptron's tree. As discussed in Chapter 2, Section 5, the process from point 9 to point 3 represents the process of nuclear fusion. Nuclear fusion produces massive energy, and that is what makes the Sun shine. In the process of nuclear fusion, helium-3 is produced, as discussed in Chapter 2, Section 5. Related to this, helium is named after Helios, one of the two Greek gods of the Sun. Helios and Apollo are different gods of the Sun, but, at a later history of Greek mythology, Helios was conflated with Apollo.
The deities of the sky, the sea, and the ground.
Uranus and Jupiter, or Uranus and Zeus, are the gods of the sky. Neptune, or Poseidon, is the god of the sea. The earth, or Gaia, is the goddess of the ground. Pluto, or Hades, is the god of the underground. Finally, Planet 9, or Tartarus, is the god of the deep underground. As discussed in Chapter 2, in the structure of the Zeptoform, the bottom sphere is the root, can go down, as illustrated. That is, the ground, the underground, and the deep underground are all represented by point 8. Neptune, who is equivalent to Poseidon, represents the characteristics of type 6. The principal value of type 6 is trust. Related to this, there was a competition between Poseidon and Athena over who would become the trustworthy patron of a city. This competition represents the conflict mode of type 6. That is, both Poseidon and Athena represent the characteristics of type 6. Athena won the competition, and thus the city was named Athens, named after Athena. She is the goddess of wisdom and courage, and According to the Enneagram theory, courage is the main virtue of type 6. Although the biological father of Athena is Zeus, the foster father was Triton, who is the son of Poseidon. Triton and Poseidon are gods of sea. In terms of the planetary system, Triton is the largest natural satellite of Neptune. Because Athena was raised by Triton, and Triton is orbiting around Neptune or Poseidon, Athena and Poseidon are connected through Triton. In terms of a gender archetype, type 6 is the combination of the male nature and the female nature, as mainly discussed in Chapter 4, Section 8. Related to this, type 6 is represented by Poseidon and Athena. Poseidon is a male deity, and Athena is a female deity. Jupiter, Neptune, and Pluto, who are all brothers, divided the universe into 3 realms: the sky, the sea, and the underworld. In the Tree of Life, their locations are contradictory. As we can see, Pluto is located at the top sphere, which represents the regal crown as well as the throne of the sky god. However, Pluto has never been the king of the universe or the god of the sky. He is the god of the underworld or the underground. Therefore, it is contradictory to put Pluto at the top. The location of Jupiter is also contradictory, as discussed previously. Jupiter, which is equivalent to Zeus, is the god of the sky, and he is considered to be the greatest king of the universe. But, in the Tree of Life, his location is not related to the regal crown or the throne of the sky god. Jupiter is the biggest planet in our solar system. On the other hand, Pluto is smaller than the Moon. When Pluto was discovered, it was declared to be the 9th planet from the Sun. However, in 2006, it was reclassified as a dwarf planet. Likewise, Hades, who is equivalent to Pluto, is not included in the 12 Olympians. The 12 Olympians are major deities of Greek mythology. The Olympians are so named because they resided on Mount Olympus, but Hades resided in the underworld, far from Olympus. As we can see, Pluto, which is equivalent to Hades, should not be located at the top.
Planet 9.
In the Zeptoform Theory, Tartarus, which is the deep underworld, is represented by Planet 9. Planet 9 is a hypothetical planet. Originally, Pluto was considered to be the 9th planet, but now it is classified as a dwarf planet. Instead, Planet 9 is the main candidate for the 9th planet. According to many scientists, Planet 9 might not be a planet but a primordial black hole. Primordial black holes are a hypothetical type of black holes. They were formed soon after the Big Bang. That is similar to Tartarus. He is one of the 3 primordial deities, Gaia, Eros, and Tartarus, emerged from the void. The void is also called chaos. Chaos is the state before the creation of the universe. The name Planet 9 is a provisional name. When, and if, the planet is discovered, a new official name will be given to it. It might be Tartarus.
Note 1.
As already discussed, Planet 9 might be a primordial black hole. According to many scientists, a primordial black hole is made of neutralinos. Also, as discussed in Chapter 2, Section 9, the neutralino is considered to be the primary candidate for dark matter.
Note 2.
As discussed in Chapter 2, Section 9, the neutralino, which is the primary candidate of dark matter, represents the shadow aspect of Type 9. With that said, because the avoidance shadow of Type 9 is mainly represented by point 8, Planet 9, which might be made of neutralino, represents one aspect of Type 8.
Eris.
As discussed in this section, Concordia, which is equivalent to Harmonia, can be seen as one aspect of Type 9. The antithetical aspect of Concordia is Discordia, which is equivalent of Eris. In other words, Discordia, or Eris, can be seen as the shadow aspect of Type 9. She is the goddess of disharmony. The name Eris was given to a dwarf planet, which is the most massive dwarf planet of our solar system. That is, its mass is greater than that of Pluto. Also, the orbit of Eris is bigger than that of Pluto and Planet 9. As we can see, in addition to Planet 9, Eris can also be seen as the shadow aspect of Type 9. With that said, as already discussed, the avoidance shadow of Type 9 is mainly represented by point 8. Therefore, in addition to Planet 9, Eris also represents one aspect of Type 8. In this figure, which was discussed in Chapter 2, point 8 is represented by C4, C3, C2, and C1. Then, C4 represents the Earth, C3 represents Pluto, C2 represents Planet 9, and C1 represents Eris.
Note:
In a DreamWorks version of Greek mythology, Eris is a denizen of Tartarus.
The dark side of mythology.
The Earth, who represents Type 8, conceived many monstrous creatures, such as one-eyed giant monsters, called the Cyclopes. On the other hand, Uranus, who represents Type 1, didn't like them. Therefore, he imprisoned these monstrous creatures in a secret place within the Earth. As we can see, the relationship between the Earth and Uranus perfectly represents the relationship between Type 8 and Type 1. Type 8 has the tendency to release his or her beast-like instinctive desires. On the other hand, Type 1 has the tendency to suppress them. That is represented by the relationship between the Earth and Uranus. As discussed, Uranus imprisoned the monstrous creatures in a secret place within the Earth. This secret place is called Tartarus. In the structure of the Zeptoform, Tartarus is represented by Planet 9, as already discussed. Because Uranus imprisoned the children of the Earth was very angry at Uranus, so she devised a plan to ambush him, in which she used one of her sons, Saturn. In this context, Saturn represents the characteristic of Type 5. That is, devising the plan of ambushing represents the process from point 8 to point 5. The process from point 8 to point 5 is described by Riso and Hudson in the following way.
The main enticement for 8s to go to 5 is that they see such a development as a tactical retrenchment from assertive action into the safety of thought. They think that they will be able to maintain their power by being shrewder and more premeditated. Instead of acting recklessly, they will attempt to act with more foresight. By being more secretive, they will be able to strike without warning. By being more wily, they will be able to hide from their enemies until they are ready to defeat them utterly.
The Earth, who is equivalent to Gaia, created a sickle for her secret plan, and Saturn used it to castrate Uranus. Because of this, the perfection of point 1 is lost. Instead, Saturn became the second king of the universe. This mythological event can be represented by the process from point 5 to point 7 and to point 1. In this process, Saturn became like his father in an unhealthy way. That is, he started to re-imprison the monstrous creatures in Tartarus. As mainly discussed in Chapter 1, in the process from point 7 to point 1, we tend to repress our instinctive desire. As already discussed, Saturn used a sickle to castrate Uranus. Then, from the testicles of Uranus, Venus emerged. This mythological event is the representation of the process from point 1 to point 4. This is one of the 4 retrogressing processes, as discussed in Chapter 1. Point 1 represents Uranus, and point 4 represents Venus. As already discussed, Saturn re-imprisoned the monstrous creatures in Tartarus. Therefore, the Earth became very angry and prophesied the following. Saturn is destined to be overthrown by his own sons, just as he had overthrown his father. Because of this, he started to eat his own children as soon as they were born. But his youngest son, Jupiter, was saved by the Earth. Then, in order to defeat Saturn, Jupiter sought advice from the Earth. Based on her advice, he released the Cyclopes from the deep underworld, and, in return for this, the Cyclopes gave him the thunderbolt. With the support of the Earth and the monsters, Jupiter was able to defeat Saturn, and he became the third king of the universe. As already discussed, Jupiter represents Type 3, and, unlike Type 1 and Type 5, Type 3 has the tendency to utilize the beast-like strength of Type 8. That is called the functioning mode, as discussed many times.
Note 1.
The battle between Jupiter and Saturn is equivalent to the battle between Zeus and Cronus. With that said, this battle is related to the battle between Olympian gods and Titan gods. Zeus is the head of the Olympians, and Cronus is the head of the Titans.
Note 2.
Prometheus is one of the Titans. According to some Enneagram specialists, Prometheus represents social Type 5. That is, Type 5 is not only represented by Cronus, but also Prometheus. The name Prometheus is used to designate one of the inner satellites of Saturn. Saturn is equivalent to Cronus. Although Prometheus was one of the Titans, he supported the Olympians. In this section, we have discussed the gods and goddesses in this figure. For example, Cronus and Prometheus are Titan gods, as already discussed. However, we have not yet discussed some of the 12 Olympians. They are Hermes, Hephaestus, Hera, Demeter, Hestia, and Dionysus. These Olympian deities will be discussed in the next section. Chapter 5, Section 6, Planets and Deities, Part 2.
The asteroid belt.
The asteroid belt is located between the orbit of Mars and that of Jupiter, as illustrated. In order to distinguish the asteroid belt from other asteroid populations, it is also called the main asteroid belt, or the main belt. The creation of the main belt is, in part, caused by the gravitational perturbations from Jupiter. Related to this, the names of many asteroids in the main belt are related to Jupiter, or Zeus, such as the names of his wives, sisters, and daughters. In this figure, the wives and lovers of Jupiter, or Zeus, are listed. Many of these names are used for the names of asteroids in the main belt. The left side is the names of Roman goddesses, and the right side is the Greek counterparts. For example, the first wife of Zeus is Metis, and the second is Themis. Demeter, Hera, and Hestia are sisters of Zeus. Among these sisters, Demeter and Hera became wives of Zeus. As already discussed, the creation of the main belt is in part caused by the gravitational perturbations from Jupiter. Jupiter is the largest planet in our solar system. Therefore, the gravitational perturbations from Jupiter are very strong.
Love and beauty.
Venus, which is equivalent to Aphrodite, represents love and beauty. Love is related to Type 2 qualities, and beauty is related to Type 4 qualities. With that said, love is represented by not only Venus, but also Ceres, Vesta, and Juno. On the other hand, beauty is represented by not only Venus, but also Dionysus. That will be discussed step by step. The largest object in the main belt is called Ceres. Ceres is a dwarf planet, and that is the only dwarf planet in the main belt. Dwarf planets are smaller than planets, but they are bigger than asteroids. Ceres is one of the wives of Jupiter, and she is the goddess of motherly relationships. With that said, mother qualities are represented by Type 2. Ceres is considered to be Mother Earth, and her Greek counterpart is Demeter. Then, you might be thinking the following: what about Gaia? Isn't she the representation of Mother Earth? Demeter and Gaia are both the representation of Mother Earth. That is similar to the relationship between Zeus and Uranus. They are both Father Sky. Uranus, as Father Sky, is the husband of Gaia, who is Mother Earth, and Zeus, as Father Sky, is the husband of Demeter, who is also Mother Earth. In the Zeptoform Theory, Demeter, which represents Type 2, is considered to be the main representation of mother qualities. On the other hand, Gaia, which represents Type 8, is considered to be the main representation of beast qualities. The beast qualities of Gaia will be discussed later.
Demeter and Persephone.
Demeter's most well-known story is called Demeter and Persephone. Persephone is the daughter of Demeter. One day, Persephone was kidnapped by Hades, who is equivalent to Pluto. Then, Demeter was very upset, and she tried to rescue Persephone from the underworld of Hades. As already discussed, Demeter represents type 2. In this context, Persephone represents type 9, and Hades represents type 8. In this figure, point 9 assimilates into the mother quality of point 2. In this way, point 9 as Persephone is represented by one of the asteroids of the main belt. As already discussed, Demeter tried to rescue Persephone from the underworld of Hades. However, there was a problem. If you eat the food of the underworld, you need to spend a third of each year in that domain. With that said, Persephone ate some pomegranate seeds of the underworld, and thus, she needs to stay there, a third of each year. When Persephone is in the underworld, Demeter becomes very sad, and it creates winter. When Persephone returns to the surface of the earth, Demeter becomes very happy, and it creates spring. That is the origin of 4 seasons. As already discussed, Demeter is Mother Earth, and thus she can control the seasons of the earth. The story of Demeter and Persephone represents one of the main characteristics of type 2 and type 9. That is, both type 2 and type 9 tend to think that the beast quality of type 8 is bad, and they tend to cover up the beast quality of themselves, covering up the beast quality of the underworld.
Note:
A nymph is a mythological spirit of nature. There was a nymph named Minth. She was living in the underworld. One day, she claimed that she was superior to Persephone in beauty. Because of that, Demeter became very angry, and she turned Minth into a mint plant. That is the origin of the word mint. As already discussed, Persephone represents one aspect of type 9, and she is represented by one of the asteroids of the main belt, not by the sun. The same can be said for Cupid and Harmonia. As discussed in the previous section, both Cupid and Harmonia represent some aspects of type 9. With that said, their names are used to designate 2 asteroids of the main belt. This figure was discussed in Chapter 2. In this figure, on the keyboard, point 9 is located at 2 different points, and these 2 points do not represent 2 exact points, but the harmonious expansion of the field. It is called the phonon field, as discussed in Chapter 2. This harmonious expansion of the field is represented by some asteroids of the main belt. As already discussed, Ceres is the largest object in the main belt. Then, the second largest object is Vesta. That is a name of a Roman goddess, and her Greek equivalent is Hestia. Zeus assigned Hestia a duty to stay at home, taking care of the family. That is a traditional role of women. Next, we will discuss Juno. The name, Juno, is used to designate one of the asteroids of the main belt. Juno is the principal wife of Jupiter, and her Greek equivalent is Hera, the principal wife of Zeus.
Hera, as the 7th wife.
Before Zeus married Hera, he had 6 wives in succession. The first wife was Metis, but Zeus swallowed her for the following reason. According to the prophecy of Gaia, the children of Metis overthrow their father. Therefore, in order to prevent this prophecy to happen, Zeus swallowed Metis when she was pregnant. It was like what his father did. As discussed in the previous section, his father, Cronus, started to eat his own children. After Zeus swallowed Metis, he took 6 more wives in succession. The 7th wife was Hera. She became the principal wife of Zeus. After Zeus married Hera, he experienced an enormous headache. Because of the pain in the head, he ordered someone to cut his head open. Then, from the head of Zeus, Athena emerged, fully grown and armed. That is the daughter of Metis.
Note 1.
As discussed in the previous section, Athena represents one aspect of type 6, and type 6 belongs to the head center. Related to this, Athena emerged from the head of Zeus.
Note 2.
Zeus represents type 3, and Athena represents type 6. Then, as mainly discussed in Chapter 1, Section 7, in the process from type 3 to type 6, type 3 needs to face inconvenient facts. In this process, type 3 tends to experience mental pain. Because Athena was born from Zeus, not from Metis, the prophecy of Gaia was cancelled. However, Hera was so annoyed at Zeus for having given birth to a child on his own. That is, Hera, as an archetype of type 2, which is the helper, wants to be needed. The archetypal characteristics of Hera are her jealousy for Zeus and vengeful nature against Zeus. It can be seen as the conflict between the feeling mode of type 2 and the functioning mode of type 3. Hera represents the feeling mode of type 2, and Zeus represents the functioning mode of type 3.
Hera and Typhon.
One day, Hera was very angry at Zeus. Because of this, she prayed to Gaia to have a son who was strong enough to beat Zeus. Then, she became pregnant. She gave birth to Typhon, who is considered to be the king of all monsters. This process of giving birth to the monster can be seen as the representation of the process from point 2 to point 8, as discussed in Chapter 1, Section 3. In this process, type 2 becomes like a monster. In terms of the origin of Typhon, there are two different stories. In one story, the mother of the monster is Hera. In the other story, that is Gaia. But, in both cases, the creation of the monster is intrinsically connected to the potential of Gaia. That is, Hera needed to pray to Gaia in order to have the monster. As discussed in the previous section, in the Zeptoform Theory, the Earth is represented by Gaia and Eros. They are both primordial deities, emerged from chaos. In addition to these two deities, Tartarus, who is the god of the deep underworld, emerged from chaos. These three primordial deities, Gaia, Eros, and Tartarus, are all represented by point 8. With that said, Gaia, as the ground, has the ability to derive powerful energy from Eros and Tartarus. Related to this, Tartarus is considered to be the father of Typhon. As we can see, point 8 represents the fundamental source of the beast-like strength.
Hera and Hephaestus.
One day, out of anger, Hera conceived and bore a baby by herself alone. The baby is named Hephaestus. Because Hephaestus was very ugly, Hera threw him away from Mount Olympus. Related to this, as discussed many times, type 2, who is represented by Hera, has the tendency to cover up any ugliness, which is related to her own self-image. Hephaestus decided to take revenge against Hera. That is the characteristic of type 8. That is, according to the Enneagram theory, the shadow aspect of type 8 is called vengeance. Hephaestus, who is the god of volcanoes, became a craftsman, and the Cyclopes became his workers. Then, he crafted an elaborate golden throne and transported it to Mount Olympus. The throne was made as a gift to his mother, Hera. Hera was very suspicious about the gift, but other deities enforced her to take the throne, so she sat upon the throne reluctantly. Then, the throne engulfed her. Hera was unable to move. The revenge was done. Then, Hephaestus left the mountain without releasing her. After that, the deities tried to release her from the throne, but it was not successful. Therefore, they needed to ask Hephaestus to come to Mount Olympus. But no one was able to convince him, except Dionysus, who represents type 4. Dionysus became a friend with Hephaestus, and he was able to convince Hephaestus to forgive Hera. Hephaestus returned to Mount Olympus and freed Hera. Then, he became one of the 12 Olympians. The 12 Olympians are major deities of Greek mythology. The Olympians are so named because they resided on Mount Olympus. This whole process represents the process from type 2 to type 4. In this process, the will of type 2 and the action of type 8 are integrated by the insight of type 4. Type 2 is represented by Hera. Type 8 is represented by Hephaestus. And type 4 is represented by Dionysus.
Note:
Both Hephaestus and Typhon represent type 8. Typhon, which was discussed previously, was buried by Zeus underneath Mount Etna. Then, he assigned Hephaestus to act as a guard, ensuring the monster could not escape. Mount Etna is one of the world's most active volcanoes, and the source of volcanoes is the glowing fire of Typhon. Typhon causes rivers of fire. Then, Hephaestus uses the glowing fire of Typhon for his job. That is, Hephaestus is the god of volcanoes and blacksmiths. As already mentioned, Zeus assigned Hephaestus to manage the monster. In this way, Zeus, which represents type 3, is able to utilize the powerful energy of the monster. That is related to the functioning mode of type 3. The functioning mode of type 3 enables us to utilize the powerful energy of point 8.
The beauty of Dionysus.
As illustrated in this figure, beauty is represented by not only Venus, or Aphrodite, but also Dionysus, who is a son of Zeus. His beauty is related to ecstatic, emotional, and tragic aspects of our lives. The exact opposite of Dionysian qualities are Apollonian qualities. Apollonian qualities are harmonic and peaceful. On the other hand, Dionysian qualities are tragic and passionate. In terms of the state of consciousness, the former is the state of dreaming, and the latter is that of intoxication. This contrast is frequently used for performance art, drama, and music. Nietzsche argues that there is no better Apollonian expression than the state of dreaming. A parson, who wants to keep dreaming, like a lucid dreamer, is the core representation of the Apollonian quality. As already discussed, Apollo represents type 9, and type 9 represents the sleeping state.
Question:
Beauty, or art, is represented by point 4, and point 4 represents female qualities. But Dionysus is a male deity. So, how do you explain this inconsistency?
Answer:
Although Dionysus is a male deity, he was raised as a daughter. Also, he is described as being womanish in his looks. He has long, curly hair that is often adorned with vines and leaves. Dionysus is one of the 12 Olympians. The Olympian seat was given to him by Hestia. As already discussed, the Roman equivalent of Hestia is Vesta. The name Dionysus is used to designate an asteroid in our solar system. Dionysus is orbiting between the main belt and the orbit of the Earth. That is, Dionysus does not perfectly fit into the main belt, and it is called a potentially hazardous object. It can make close approaches to the Earth, and thus, it can cause significant damage to the Earth. Related to this, Dionysian art is the expression of tragedy. The mother of Dionysus, Semele, was a human. That is, Dionysus represents the bridge between God and human. Related to this, type 4 represents the bridge between different levels, as mainly discussed in Chapter 2. Next, we discuss the relationship between Jupiter, Mercury, and the asteroids. Mercury, who is equivalent to Hermes, is a son of Jupiter, and he is represented by point 7 and point 5. That is, these 2 points are 2 complementary aspects of Mercury. He served Jupiter, or Zeus, as a messenger. His role as a messenger is the bridge between the upper world and the lower world. He especially used Mercury in order to send his messages to his wives, sisters, and daughters. This function is represented by this figure.
Note:
The meaning of the 2 arrows in this figure was discussed in Section 3. The characteristics of Mercury was described by Zev ben Shimon Halevi in the following way.
He was the deity, concerned with the acquisition of knowledge, and its dispensation. Witty, cunning, deft, fleet of foot. Mercury represents the versatile intelligence that scans for data, picks it up, passes it on, then scans again, he knew about everything.
As described by Halevi, Mercury has versatile intelligence and quick movement, and that is the characteristic of type 7. Mercury does not only represents the characteristic of type 7, but also the wide range of knowledge of type 5. In Zeptron's tree, Mercury is represented by Netzach and Hod. These are active intellect and passive intellect. On the other hand, in the tree of life, Mercury is represented by Hod only. Hod is passive intellect, but the main characteristic of Mercury is active intellect. Mercury is considered to be a trickster, and type 7, which represents active intellect, is called a trickster. As we can see, by using Zeptron's tree, the characteristics of Mercury can be described more accurately. Jupiter, or Zeus, is also connected to the Moon and the Earth through Mercury, or Hermes. The process from point 7 to point 5 to point 8 and to point 7 was mainly discussed in Chapter 1. Mercury has the most eccentric orbit of all the planets in our solar system. It has a ratio of 2 to 3, as illustrated. In this section, we discussed the connection between Venus and the asteroids. Also, we discussed the connection between the upper world and the lower world through the function of Mercury. Chapter 5, Section 7, Summary. As we have seen in this chapter, by converting the structure of the tree of life to that of the Zeptoform, the system becomes consistent. As already discussed, dot is considered to be an unseen sphere. Therefore, that is not included in the basic spheres of the tree of life. Likewise, in the Zeptoform, point 3, which represents dot, is considered to be one of the two emergent points. In the structure of Zeptoform, there is the dimension of point 6, which is the other emergent point. It represents the seeker, who is seeing the all basic points of the Zeptoform. Through the process from point 6 to point 9, we can enter the structure of the Zeptoform. As discussed in Section 1, each sphere of the tree of life is protected by an archangel. For example, dot is protected by Archangel Lucifer, and Keter, which is the topmost sphere, is protected by Archangel Metatron. Then, the integration of all archangels can be called Zeptron. In other words, this structure can be called Zeptron's tree.